In the heart of Chicago, where old brick buildings stood alongside sleek skyscrapers, two ambitious entrepreneurs set out to learn from a legendary business mentor, Daniel Carter. Known for transforming ordinary business owners into industry leaders, Carter had built and sold multiple companies, from manufacturing startups to tech ventures. The first was Jake, a sharp strategist who believed knowledge was the key to success. He devoured business books, attended every conference, and followed all the top business influencers. His notebooks were filled with strategies on scaling companies, financial forecasting, and market positioning. The second was Ben, a hands-on entrepreneur who believed action was the best teacher. He had built a small but successful logistics company, learning by trial and error. Instead of reading about business, he experimented, tested, and adjusted based on real-world results. Both approached Carter, eager to learn the secrets of business mastery. The Archer's Challenge. One morning, Carter led them to a quiet courtyard behind his office. There, an old wooden target stood against a brick wall, and beside it, a bow and a quiver of arrows rested on a table. To master business or any skill, you need to understand how learning really works, Carter said. Your challenge is simple. Hit the center of this target. You have 1 month. Jake nodded and immediately pulled out his notebook, calculating wind resistance, draw weight, and optimal angles. He spent hours watching archery tutorials, reading expert advice, and analyzing every technical detail before even picking up the bow. Ben, on the other hand, picked up the bow right away. His first shot missed by a mile, but he didn't dwell on it. He adjusted his stance, fired again, and paid attention to what changed. Shot after shot, he tweaked his technique. The trap of over-preparation. By the end of the first week, Jake still hadn't taken a shot. He kept refining his theories, making sure he had the perfect knowledge before trying. Meanwhile, Ben had already fired over 200 arrows, each time learning something new about aim, grip, and technique. By the second week, Jake finally took his first shot and missed badly. Frustrated, he checked his notes, adjusted, and tried again. But his knowledge didn't translate to skill. He was overthinking every little adjustment instead of letting experience guide him. Meanwhile, Ben had developed a natural feel for the bow. He no longer had to think about every detail. His body had internalized the adjustments through practice. By the third week, he was consistently hitting the center. Carter watched them silently. The startup mindset. One evening, Carter invited them to his office. His desk was stacked with books on business strategy, but on the wall, framed blueprints of his first company, a logistics startup, hung proudly. He poured 2 cups of coffee and leaned forward. This, he said, tapping on an old business plan, was my first startup. I spent months writing the perfect business plan, analyzing every potential risk before I launched. And guess what? The moment I started, everything changed. The real world didn't care about my perfect plan. He turned to Jake. You've spent weeks gathering information, but you haven't applied it. Knowledge without action is just a theory. Then he turned to Ben. You, on the other hand, have embraced the startup mindset, experimenting, learning from feedback, and adapting quickly. Jake frowned, realizing his mistake. He had fallen into the trap of analysis paralysis, where he consumed so much information that he never actually moved forward. Ben, on the other hand, had embraced iterative learning, testing, adjusting, and improving with every attempt. The final test. On the last day of the month, Carter set up a new target, this time twice as far away. Ben, having built real skill, adjusted naturally and continued hitting the mark. His experience had trained him to adapt. Jake, despite all his research, still struggled. His overloaded mind processed too many variables, preventing smooth execution. Carter placed a hand on his shoulder. In business, as in archery, knowledge alone isn't enough. The most successful entrepreneurs don't just study. They act, test, and refine. The best way to learn isn't to know everything first. It's to learn as fast as you can apply. Jake nodded. From that day forward, he changed his approach. Instead of endlessly studying business strategies, he focused on taking action, gathering real-world feedback, and improving based on results. Ben, already on the path of experiential learning, continued refining his skills, knowing that mastery wasn't about how much you knew, but how well you applied what you learned. The entrepreneur's lesson. As an entrepreneur, success doesn't come from consuming endless books, podcasts, and courses. It comes from taking action, failing, learning, and adapting. Like an archer learning to shoot, you won't perfect your aim by reading about it. You need to take the shot. So the next time you find yourself stuck in research mode, remember, the fastest way to learn is to act and refine. You won't hit the target by overthinking, only by doing. Business success comes from experimentation, not perfection. Now go take your first shot.